The Kremlin said Friday that U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff was back in Russia and would meet with Putin in St. Petersburg. According to Associated Press, Witkoff, who has been pressing the Kremlin to accept a truce, initially met with Putin envoy Kirill Dmitriev, footage released by Russian media showed. The process of normalization of relations is ongoing. We are looking for the basis to establish the trajectory of the Ukrainian settlement, Dmitry Peskov, Russian presidential spokesman, said. Witkoff's trip comes amid growing questions over the Kremlin's willingness to end the more than 3-year military campaign. Meanwhile, European countries vowed Friday to send billions of dollars in further funding to help Ukraine keep fighting.
Двусторонние отношения и нормализация вопросов деятельности диппредставительств обсуждали накануне в Стамбуле. С Виткоффом в основном идут обсуждения насчет украинского урегулирования. Продолжается работа, скрупулезная работа, идет обмен мнениями, доводятся позиции друг для друга. Вот. Поэтому это такая скрупулезная работа. Здесь не нужно ожидать каких-то прорывов. Происходит процесс нормализации отношений и поиски, скажем так, почвы для выхода на траекторию урегулирования вокруг Украины.
The US is facing a shortage of ammunition in the Pacific region due to intensive military operations in Yemen. Army commanders are concerned about the possible consequences for deterring China, the New York Times reports. With the military operation against the Houthis in Yemen heavily using munitions, the United States risks running out of weapons it needs to deter China. In particular, the US military has already significantly depleted its reserves, using up about $200 million in munitions in the first 3 weeks of the campaign. One of the key issues is how long America can maintain its military position in Asia, given its spending in the Middle East. If the situation with Iran worsens, as many experts suggest, the US may be forced to increase its military presence in the region, which will further weaken its position in the Pacific. The weapons used in Yemen, such as Tomahawk missiles, armed drones and AGM-158 cruise missiles, are the same ones needed to deter China in the South China Sea and East China Sea. These missiles are held in US strategic stockpiles in Asia, including bases in Guam and Japan, but some could be redirected to the Middle East if needed. Biden has strengthened military ties with Japan, South Korea, the Philippines and Australia, and sold weapons to those countries to deter China from aggressive actions, especially against Taiwan, the de facto independent island and the Chinese Communist Party seeks to reclaim. It was a response to Xi Jinping, China's leader, who has talked about the need to control Taiwan, but has not said so openly or set a timeline. Trump has been cautious about what he could do if China tried to invade or blockade Taiwan. Elon Musk, Trump's billionaire advisor, has said Taiwan should be under Chinese control, while Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said the US opposes any unilateral changes to the status quo. Taiwan remains the most important flashpoint in US-China relations and the most likely trigger for armed conflict between the two nuclear superpowers. China's growing military power is also a major concern among US strategists. Beijing continues to develop its nuclear and naval forces. Amid concerns about possible ammunition shortages that could impact US plans in the Pacific, Admiral Paparos's spokesman spoke out to ease concerns. The US military provides flexible deterrence options to protect national interests across all combatant commands, while maintaining ready, capable, and lethal forces in the Indo-Pacific region to ensure national defense and respond to any contingency.
Ukraine has destroyed a rare Russian Merlin VR drone worth over $300,000 in eastern Donetsk region. The drone was shot by Ukrainian anti-aircraft gunners from the 63rd Separate Brigade and artillerymen from the 45th Separate Artillery Brigade in the direction of Lyman City in Donetsk, Ukrainian media reported on Thursday. Ukrainian fighters managed not only to destroy the expensive Russian drone, but also recorded a rare footage of the shooting down of the Russian target at an altitude of several kilometers. Merlin VR is one of the most expensive Russian-made drones. This experimental reconnaissance drone is capable of rising to an altitude of up to 5 kilometers and staying in the air for up to 10 hours, flying distances of up to 600 kilometers. Ukraine has stepped up attacks on Russian military targets in its territories as well as in Russia. Earlier, on Wednesday, the Commander-in-Chief of Ukrainian Armed Forces, Oleksandr Syrsky, revealed that Ukrainian army destroyed a Russian Tu-22 M3 supersonic bomber worth $100 million in Donetsk this week.
The Russian armed forces have entered a black streak in the Sumy direction. After the failure of the offensive on Lochnia, the occupiers were also driven out of Basovka. This was reported by the Russian Z Resource Northern Channel, which is associated with the Russian armed forces. On April the 7th, a group of Russian troops on quad bikes tried to break through to the village of Lochnia, which is approximately 6 kilometers from the state border. The column was instantly destroyed. After these events, according to Z Channel, the Russian army had to roll back from Basovka as well. We didn't have any luck with the attack on Lochnia. With ATVs, it didn't work out right away, and the Ukrainian felt it. He went on a counterattack and in some places recaptured our positions near Basovka. Their drones and mortars are working without pause, right on the positions. We are trying to hold on, but it is clear that the enemy has gathered itself and is acting precisely. It does not want to let go of its own. Most likely, it will try to take it back again, wrote Severny Kanal. It should be noted that according to the influential OSINT project, Deep State, a small section of the state border, 1 to 6 kilometers wide in the Sumy region, is a grey zone, i.e. an area of active fighting. It is not controlled by either side. Recall last month, Russia drove Ukrainian forces out of most of the territory in Russia's Kursk region that they had seized the previous August. The Russians deployed their own elite brigades, North Korean troops, and a new weapon, fiber optic drones that are controlled by a long, lightweight filament rather than radio signals, making them impossible to jam. Now the fighting has spilled back over the border into Ukraine. Settlements close to the frontier are being pummeled and several thousand civilians have fled or been evacuated. Some Russian assault units have crossed the border, though so far, insists Volodymyr Artyuk, the head of Sumy province's military administration, they have been eliminated. Ukrainian troops still hold slivers of territory inside Russia. In a diversionary attack in the last week of March, they advanced over the border into the neighboring Belgorod region. Russian forces are bombing the towns and villages inside Ukraine, through which Ukrainian forces passed to get to Belgorod. To the east, meanwhile, in the Donbas region, the fighting continues.